Have you ever felt like you were drowning? Drowning in an ocean of noise, of expectations, of an urgency that seems to have no end. The constant pressure to be more, do more, have more, post more. That feeling that you're running on a treadmill that speeds up with every step, chasing a version of happiness that always seems to be just around the next corner, in the next post, in the next achievement that, by the time it arrives, has already lost its shine. I know I felt that way. For a long time I was submerged in that ocean. And like a desperate castaway, I clung to any piece of wreckage that promised salvation. Spontaneity, novelty, the breaking of any rule. I believed the lie we were told, the lie that a life well lived is a life of glorious chaos, that a routine is a cage for unimaginative souls. But what if I told you that this relentless pursuit of the new is the real prison? That the chaos we so often glorify is, in fact, the source of our chronic anxiety, our profound exhaustion? Today we're going to dive into a truth that might seem strange, almost a secret in this day and age. We're going to talk about how to find freedom and structure. About how to transform the ordinary into a sacred act. We're going to discover together, step by step, the deep and liberating beauty of a simple routine. If you're seeking more emotional balance, clarity for your mind, and want to learn how to navigate life with more wisdom, this channel was made for you. This is our space for reflection. So, if this pursuit resonates with you, leave a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, because with each video, you'll strengthen your inner world and find new tools for your journey. The myth of spontaneity. I used to have an almost physical contempt for the word routine. To me it was the antonym of life. It sounded like boredom, conformity, the slow death of creativity. I saw myself as a free spirit, someone who should live at the whim of the wind, embracing unpredictability as a mantra. The problem? In practice, this spontaneity was just a poetic name for a life of pure reactivity. I wasn't in control of anything at all. I was a leaf in the wind, controlled by the demands of others, by the incessant notifications on my phone, by my own momentary and ill-conceived impulses. My life had no walls. It was like a house with no doors or windows, an open invitation for anyone to come in and steal my time, my energy, my peace. I was constantly tired, perpetually anxious, and had an unsettling feeling that, despite always being busy, I wasn't building anything solid, anything that truly mattered. It was a painful realization. The spontaneity I so desperately sought was a myth. A life without any structure isn't freedom. It's a sophisticated form of slavery to the whims of the outside world. The false freedom of chaos. So why are we so drawn to this idea of chaos? I've reflected on this a lot. I think deep down we're afraid of silence. We're afraid of what we might find if we stop running, if we turn off the noise. Afraid of facing the void, the possibility that our life, stripped of distractions, is insufficient. So we fill ourselves with stimuli. We jump from one dopamine hit to the next, the notification, the next episode of the series. Chaos becomes a drug, a way to avoid the inevitable encounter with ourselves. But this escape comes at a very high cost. It keeps us in a constant state of alert, with our nervous system always overloaded. The Stoic philosophers like Seneca and Marcus Aurelius were already talking about this millennia ago. They taught that true freedom is not in controlling external events, which is impossible, but in controlling our response to them. A reactive life is the opposite of this. It's allowing every external event to dictate our inner state. An intentional routine, on the other hand, is Stoic training in practice. It is the act of building an inner citadel that the chaos of the world cannot invade. Decision fatigue, the invisible energy thief. There's a concept in psychology that was a revelation for me: decision fatigue. Think of your willpower and ability to make good decisions as a cell phone battery. Every morning you wake up with it at 100%. What most of us don't realize is that every small decision we make throughout the day consumes a small percentage of that battery. What clothes should I wear? What should I have for breakfast? Which email should I answer first? Should I go to the gym now or later? In isolation they seem insignificant. But added up over a day they are hundreds of small drains on your mental energy. This is why, at the end of the day, we are much more likely to make bad choices. Ordering processed food instead of cooking, spending hours in front of the TV instead of reading, having an angry outburst over a silly argument. Our decision-making battery is in the red. Herein lies the genius of a simple routine. It automates the trivial. By deciding just once what you'll have for breakfast during the week, or that you'll always exercise at the same time, you eliminate hundreds of micro-decisions from your day. You preserve your precious mental battery for what really matters. Solving a complex problem, being patient with your child, having a difficult conversation with empathy and clarity. Routine is not about limitation, it's about the intelligent allocation of mental resources. From prison to sanctuary. The major turning point for me, the moment when routine stopped being an enemy, was when I stopped seeing it as something imposed and started seeing it as something I design. It's not the assembly line routine that dehumanizes. It's the artisan's routine that empowers. I became the architect of my own peace. I started to think of my day as a sacred space that needed a structure to be protected. The routine became that structure. It didn't fill every minute, but it created the main pillars, the support beams of my day. Within that structure, I still had freedom, but it was freedom with purpose, not chaotic freedom. Imagine you want to build a beautiful garden. You can't just throw seeds to the wind and hope for the best. You need to prepare the soil, create the flower beds, define the paths, install an irrigation system. This structure doesn't limit the plants. It creates the ideal conditions for them to flourish. Routine is the gardening of our daily life. We prepare the ground so that calmness, focus, and creativity can blossom. The routine ceased to be my cell and became my sanctuary. The banks of the river. The analogy that has marked me the most and which I always revisit is that of the river. Think of a river without banks. It's not a powerful river. It's a formless swamp. The water spreads out, becomes shallow, stagnant, muddy. It has no force, no direction. Now think of a river with strong, well-defined banks. The same amount of water, now channeled, gains depth, speed, and immense power, capable of carving canyons. Our vital energy, our time, our focus, all of this is the water. A life without a routine is a swamp. We are always busy, but our energy is scattered, shallow, and doesn't take us anywhere. We feel stagnant. The routine is the banks we build for the river of our life. They don't trap the water, they guide it. They give depth and purpose to our flow. They allow us to carve the canyons of our existence, instead of getting lost in the mud of stagnation. The dawn ritual, reclaiming your mornings. If your life is a castle, the morning is the main gate. If you leave the gate open and unguarded, any enemy army can enter before you even wake up. For years my gate was wide open. The army of notifications, emails, and news invaded my mind in the first second of the day. The decision to reclaim my mornings was the most important battle I ever won. I decided that the first hour of the day would be mine and mine alone. A sacred territory, free from the invasion of the outside world. And to defend this territory I created a ritual. A simple yet powerful ritual. The silent enemy, the smartphone in bed. The first step, and the hardest, was to banish the smartphone from my bedroom. Or, at the very least, from my immediate reach upon waking. Reaching for your phone as the first action of the day is the equivalent of inviting a million voices to scream in your head at the same time. It's a cocktail of cortisol, the stress hormone, and comparison anxiety. You see the perfectly edited lives of others and feel that yours is inadequate. You see the urgent world news and feel a weight before you even put your feet on the ground. You see the emails and work demands and your mind already goes into panic mode. It is the worst possible way to start a day. Putting the phone aside for the first 60 minutes of the day is not a luxury, it is a matter of psychological self-defense. The first gesture, the anchor of presence. With the phone out of the picture, what to do? I needed a new anchor. Something to bring me into my body, into the present moment. I chose coffee. But not just drinking coffee. The ritual of preparing it. I focus on each step as if it were the most important thing in the world. The sound of the beans being ground. The aroma that fills the kitchen. The gentle sound of hot water passing through the grounds. The weight and warmth of the cup in my hands. Each of these sensory details is an invitation to return to the here and now. It's an active meditation. This first intentional gesture sets the tone for the rest of the day, a tone of presence, not of hurry. Therapeutic writing, the journal as an escape valve. After coffee I sit with a notebook. For just 10 minutes. I call it a mental download. I don't write to create a work of art. I write to empty my mind. I pour onto the paper all my anxieties, fears, confused ideas, to-do lists that haunt me. It's like taking out the mental trash. The act of externalizing these thoughts is incredibly powerful. When they are just in our head, they seem like huge, scary monsters. When we put them on paper, they lose their power. We see them for what they are, just thoughts. This practice gives me immense clarity and prevents anxiety from building up throughout the day. It's an honest conversation with myself, without filters and without judgment. The body as an anchor, conscious movement. I used to treat my body as an inconvenient accessory to my mind. I lived almost exclusively inside my head, in a whirlwind of thoughts, and forgot that I inhabited a physical body. The result was a tense, sore body and a level of anxiety I couldn't explain. The truth is that the mind and body are a single system. An anxious mind creates a tense body, and a neglected body creates a foggy mind. The routine forced me to make peace with my body. And no, I didn't have to join a high-performance gym or start running marathons. The change was much more subtle and sustainable. I inserted into my routine a non-negotiable commitment, a 20-minute daily walk. The meditative walk, 20 minutes of sanity. The rule for this walk is simple: no headphones. No podcasts, no music, no audiobooks. The goal is not to consume more information, but to connect with the environment. The goal is to take attention away from the chattering mind and place it on the senses. I pay attention to the sensation of my feet touching the ground, to the rhythm of my breath, to the wind on my face. I observe the details around me, the shape of the leaves on a tree, the color of a door, the way the sunlight hits a building. This simple practice, repeated every day, works as a reset for the nervous system. It takes me out of the prison of mental abstraction and anchors me in the concrete, sensory reality of the present moment. It's my daily remedy against anxiety. The ritual of eating, more than just fuel. Another area where I lived on autopilot was eating. I ate in a hurry, often in front of a screen, treating food only as fuel to keep producing. I barely tasted what I was ingesting. The routine helped me transform the act of eating into a ritual of presence and gratitude. I started practicing mindful eating. This simply means paying attention. Turning off the TV, putting the phone aside. Looking at the food on the plate. Noticing the colors, the textures, the aromas. Chewing slowly, savoring each bite. This not only improved my digestion but also increased my satisfaction. I began to need less food to feel full, because I was truly nourishing my body and mind with attention. It is a small act of respect for oneself and for the food that sustains us. Finding the sacred in the mundane. One of the biggest sources of my aversion to routine was household chores. Washing the dishes, making the bed, cleaning the house. I saw all of this as a burden, as time stolen from more noble or productive activities. My mood would sour instantly. The change in perspective came from a Zen teaching. For a monk, sweeping the temple floor is not a task to get over with. It is a spiritual practice. He doesn't sweep to have a clean floor. He sweeps to clean his own mind. The total attention is on the act of sweeping, on the breath, on the movement. I decided to try this alchemy of mindfulness. The next time I went to wash the dishes, instead of doing it with haste and resentment, I slowed down. I intentionally focused on the temperature of the water on my hands, on the feeling of the foam, on the soft sound of the dishes. And something magical happened. The task, which was once a source of stress, became peaceful, almost meditative. The boredom was not in the task but in my attitude towards it. Making the bed, your first victory of the day. It may seem silly, but one of the most transformative habits I adopted was making the bed every morning without exception. It's the first task of my day. It takes less than 2 minutes, but the psychological impact is enormous. First, it's an act of order in a chaotic world. You start the day by creating a small space of serenity and organization. Second, it's a promise kept to yourself. You set out to do something and you did it. This generates a small boost of self-confidence and discipline. Third, as an American admiral said in a famous speech, if you want to change the world, start by making your bed. If you have a terrible day, you will come home to a made bed. A bed that you made. And that will give you the encouragement that tomorrow can be better. It is your first victory of the day, and it sets the stage for other victories. The craft of focus, protecting your mental energy. At my job, I was a multitasking addict. I prided myself on being able to answer emails during a meeting, jump between 15 open tabs in my browser, and take a call at the same time. I thought I was the pinnacle of productivity. In reality, I was just the pinnacle of shallow busyness. My work was superficial, full of small mistakes, and at the end of the day my brain was completely fried, unable to think clearly. The routine taught me the art of deep work, of monastic focus. I started to structure my day into blocks of time. The most sacred block is in the morning, right after my morning ritual, when my mental energy is at its peak. For a period of 90 to 120 minutes, I create a fortress of concentration. I turn off my phone. I disable all computer notifications. I close all tabs that are not essential for the task at hand. I work on one single thing, the most important one of the day. At first, it was agony. My mind, conditioned by distraction, screamed for a new stimulus every 2 minutes. But I persisted. And over time, I rediscovered the ability to dive deep into a problem. The quality of my work improved exponentially. But the biggest change was internal. At the end of these focus blocks, I felt energized and accomplished, not drained and frustrated. The art of the real break. Just as important as the focus blocks are the breaks. But I had to relearn how to take a break. Before, my break consisted of leaving a work screen to dive into the phone screen. I was just swapping one type of high-intensity stimulus for another. It wasn't rest, it was just a different distraction. A real break, I learned, is a moment of emptiness. It's getting up from the chair, going to the window, and just looking outside without thinking about anything specific. It's stretching. It's making a tea and drinking it in silence. It's closing your eyes for 5 minutes and just breathing. Science shows that it's in these moments of mental rest, when the conscious mind is offline, that our brain makes the most creative connections and consolidates learning. The routine taught me that rest is not the opposite of work. It is an integral part of it. The power of compounding, small steps, great transformations. We live in the culture of all or nothing and instant results. We want to get in shape in a week, learn a language in a month, become a master of something overnight. And when reality sets in, when progress is slow, we get frustrated and give up. I was the champion of quitting. I would start projects with a burst of enthusiasm and abandon them at the first plateau. The routine taught me the most powerful and counterintuitive lesson of all. The power of compounding, the miracle of the compound effect. True transformation doesn't happen in a Herculean effort on a single day. It happens in a small, almost invisible step, repeated consistently day after day. Think about the math of the soul. Reading 15 pages a day seems insignificant. But in a year, that's 5,475 pages, the equivalent of about 20 books. Meditating for 10 minutes a day seems like a small thing. But in a year, that's over 60 hours of training for your mind. Writing 300 words a day seems like a minimal effort. But in a year, you have a manuscript of almost 110,000 words. Routine is an act of faith in this slow process. It's understanding that laying one brick a day patiently is how you build cathedrals. Fall in love with the process, not just the prize. This compounding mindset led me to another profound discovery, the importance of falling in love with the process. When we are obsessed only with the end result, the published book, the perfect body, the promotion, the path to get there becomes a torture, a burden to be endured. And most of life is the journey, not the destination. The routine taught me to find joy in the act itself. The joy of writing the sentence, not just of having the book. The joy of feeling the body move, not just of seeing the number on the scale. The joy of the artisan who finds satisfaction in the wood being sanded, in the clay being shaped. When you find pleasure in the daily practice, the result becomes a natural consequence, not an anxious obsession. You stop asking, "Are we there yet?" and you start enjoying the ride. The rigidity trap, the map versus the train tracks. Now, it would be dishonest not to talk about the dark side of routine. A subtle trap into which I myself have fallen. It's when discipline becomes rigidity. When structure becomes an obsession. It's the moment when the routine, which was meant to be a tool for freedom, turns into a new prison, only this time one that we proudly built ourselves. I remember a phase when I became so attached to my perfect routine that it began to isolate me from the flow of life. I declined a last-minute invitation from a good friend because it would disrupt my reading time. I became genuinely grumpy when an unexpected rain prevented me from taking my morning walk. The routine had stopped serving me, I was serving it. I was using it as a shield to protect myself from the beautiful and inevitable messiness of existence. That's when I created the analogy of the map versus the train tracks. The routine should be a map. The map gives you a direction, shows you the landmarks, gives you a suggested path. But it also allows you to explore a side road that looks interesting, to take a detour to see a landscape, or even to decide to camp in one place for a while. The train tracks, on the other hand, force you onto a single, inflexible path. Any deviation is a disaster. Many people turn their routine into train tracks. Wisdom lies in using it as a map, knowing when to follow the path and when to allow yourself an adventure. The wisdom of knowing when to break the routine. True mastery is not in blindly following the routine, but in knowing when to intentionally break it. It's having the self-awareness to ask yourself in each situation, will following my plan now bring me more life, or will it take me away from it? Sometimes, the most disciplined thing to do is to abandon discipline. It's sleeping in because your body is exhausted. It's throwing the meal plan out the window and ordering a pizza with friends because human connection is more nourishing at that moment. It's not writing your chapter of the book because your child wants to show you a drawing. The routine is your home base, your safe harbor. But a harbor is only useful so that ships can go out to sea and have a safe place to return to. A ship that never leaves the harbor is just an ornament. Don't be afraid to sail. The twilight shutdown, preparing the mind for rest. Just like the morning, the way you end your day is crucial. For a long time, I would go from the work screen to the TV screen, and from the TV screen to the phone screen in bed. I would take all the stress, all the stimulation, all the blue light with me to the pillow. And then I would wonder why my sleep was shallow, why I woke up already tired. So, I created a shutdown ritual. 1 hour before bedtime, all screens go off. It's a golden rule. The house becomes quieter, the light softer. This hour is a decompression zone. It's a clear signal to my brain that the day's battle is over and it's time to prepare for rest and recovery. During this period, I read a fiction book, something that transports me to another world and disconnects me from my own worries. I listen to calm music. I drink an herbal tea. It's a time for analog and relaxing activities. Gratitude and planning. Emptying the mind. Before going to bed, as the last act of the day, I take my journal and do 2 very simple things. First, I write down 3 things I'm grateful for from that day. They can be tiny things: the taste of coffee, a smile from a stranger, finishing a difficult task. This practice reprograms the brain to focus on what was good, instead of ruminating on what went wrong. Second, I quickly jot down the 2 or 3 most important tasks for the next day. This act of dumping worries onto paper is liberating. It takes the responsibility off my mind to keep remembering and worrying about it during the night. I trust the paper. This gives me permission to truly switch off and enter a deeper sleep. Routine as an act of rebellion. It may seem like a paradox, but today I see my simple, quiet routine as a powerful act of rebellion. In a world that profits from our distraction, choosing focus is rebellious. In a society that bombards us with messages that we are never good enough and always need more, choosing contentment with the simple things is rebellious. In a culture that demands our availability and attention 24/7, choosing to fiercely protect our time and energy is an act of profound subversion. Having a conscious routine is saying no with your actions. No to the tyranny of urgency. No to the need for constant external validation. No to the belief that our productivity defines our worth as human beings. It is an act of reclaiming sovereignty over our own life, our own time, our own mind. It is a silent revolution, which takes place in the sacred space between sunrise and sunset, every single day. You are the composer of your peace. And so, we come to the end of our reflection for today. If you, like me, have ever felt lost in the ocean of modern chaos, I hope you have found here not a magic formula but a compass. The peace you are looking for is not out there, in some perfect circumstance or future achievement. It is here and now. It is in your hands, in the architecture of your daily choices. The beauty of a simple routine is that it gives us back our power. It reminds us that we are the artisans of our daily experience. We cannot control the storms that will come, but we can build a solid shelter, an inner sanctuary, made of intentional habits and rituals that nourish and protect us. Think of your life as a symphony. Each day is a small musical phrase. Making the bed, the first cup of coffee, the walk, the reading hour, the goodnight kiss. These are the notes. Repeated without intention, they are just noise. But when you organize them with purpose, when you create a rhythm, a melody, a theme, they transform into something of immense beauty and meaning. The symphony of your life. You are the composer. So, the question I leave you with is, what is the first note you are going to play tomorrow? What is the first small ritual, no matter how insignificant it may seem, that you can implement to start composing your own piece? Don't wait for inspiration. Create the conditions for it to appear. Start small. Start now. Thank you for joining me on this journey. The search for self-knowledge is solitary in its essence, but it becomes richer when shared. Leave in the comments which idea resonated with you the most, or what small ritual you already practice or plan to adopt. Your experience illuminates the path for all of us. And if this content helped you reflect, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our next conversations. Until then, take care of yourself and build your peace one day at a time.